Detective Lena Sørensen and her team in Dept faced the city's most chilling cold cases, unsolved disappearances, cryptic messages, and a criminal so meticulous he had eluded justice for years. Every clue they uncovered brought them closer to a shocking truth that would change everything. Detective Lena Sørensen had always felt the invisible weight of unsolved cases pressing down on her, a burden she carried quietly through years of work in the city police. She had a reputation for seeing what others overlooked, for noticing patterns hidden in plain sight. But even she was wary of what awaited inside Dept. The unit specialized in cold cases, cases that had gone untouched for years, sometimes decades, and were often dismissed as hopeless. Today, however, something drew her in like a magnet. A file that had collected dust on the top shelf for over 12 years. The disappearance of Maja Kristoff was unlike the others. Maja had been a young woman in her early 20s, full of life and promise, until one evening she simply vanished from her quiet neighborhood without a trace. Lena studied the initial police reports carefully. They were filled with details that seemed routine at first glance. A missing person report filed late at night, witnesses who saw her walking home, a few security cameras that captured fleeting images of a shadowy figure trailing behind her. But Lena noticed things others had ignored. There was a crumpled note found on the floor of Maja's apartment, folded so tightly it looked almost ceremonial, with a single cryptic word written on it. There were fingerprints on the door handle that had never matched any known individual in the national database. Most curiously, a camera belonging to Maja had a roll of film missing, suggesting she had captured something that someone else didn't want to see. Lena called together her team, each member bringing a unique skill that complemented her own. Jonas, the forensic analyst, was meticulous with physical evidence and had a knack for uncovering details others dismissed. Freya, the behavioral profiler, could construct a psychological map of a suspect from the smallest actions, predicting moves before they happened. Elias, the digital investigator, had a sixth sense for patterns in the chaotic web of online activity, able to uncover connections hidden in code and metadata. Finally, there was Henrik, the seasoned investigator who had spent decades piecing together seemingly unrelated incidents, turning fragments of information into complete pictures. The atmosphere in the room was tense, charged with anticipation. Each file on the table represented not just a mystery, but a story frozen in time, lives disrupted, and families left without answers. The team knew the work ahead would be demanding, both mentally and emotionally, but they also knew that cold cases demanded persistence, a willingness to challenge assumptions, and a sharp eye for overlooked details. Lena carefully spread out photographs from Maja's apartment, showing the arrangement of furniture, objects slightly out of place, and items that seemed ordinary until examined closely. As they examined the notes, fingerprints, and traces of evidence, a pattern slowly began to emerge, faint but unmistakable. Someone had been deliberate, patient, and careful, leaving breadcrumbs meant only for those willing to see them. The team understood that this investigation would test their skills like never before. Every decision, every observation would have to be precise. They weren't just chasing a missing person. They were pursuing a carefully constructed puzzle, one that demanded intellect, courage, and an unwavering commitment to truth. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cluttered office, Lena felt the familiar thrill of a case that would not let go, knowing that solving it would require looking beyond the obvious and following every hidden thread wherever it might lead. The team began retracing Maja Kristoff's final steps with a meticulousness that bordered on obsession. They reviewed CCTV footage from the night she vanished, watching her figure move through dimly lit streets, her pace measured, almost unaware of the presence that shadowed her from a distance. The mysterious figure never fully appeared on camera, slipping behind poles, ducking around corners, always just beyond focus, as if deliberately taunting those who would later search for answers. Jonas, the forensic analyst, combed through Maja's apartment again, this time under intense magnification, discovering fibers and residues that did not belong to her home, her wardrobe, or her lifestyle. Each tiny fragment hinted at the presence of someone foreign, someone who had breached the sanctuary of her private space without leaving an immediately recognizable trace. Freya, the behavioral expert, examined these details with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable. She began constructing a profile of the person behind Maja's disappearance. Methodical, intelligent, patient, someone who took extreme care to plan every step, every interaction. The more she studied the notes, the fingerprints, and the missing film, the clearer it became that this was not a crime of passion or impulse, but a carefully orchestrated act designed to evade detection. Meanwhile, Elias worked tirelessly in the digital realm, scanning old emails, social media accounts, and deleted messages, searching for connections that had gone unnoticed for years. Slowly, patterns began to emerge, linking Maja's disappearance to other unsolved cases across the country. At first, these links seemed tenuous, merely circumstantial coincidences. But as Elias continued, he uncovered subtle similarities, cryptic notes left behind in abandoned homes, objects carefully moved or removed, and sequences of behavior that suggested an overarching plan. Lena and Henrik coordinated efforts to track these patterns geographically and chronologically, discovering that each case had a signature, a particular method that marked the presence of the same elusive perpetrator. The team realized they were no longer investigating a single disappearance. They were unraveling a web of carefully concealed crimes, a network of secrets spanning years. The pressure mounted. As the team connected the dots, small warnings appeared in their own environment. Suspicious vehicles parked near their offices, anonymous emails with veiled threats, and subtle attempts to interfere with their research. It became apparent that whoever was responsible for Maja's disappearance was aware that someone was looking, someone persistent enough to follow the trail others had abandoned. Yet rather than intimidate the detectives, these signs fueled their determination. Every fiber, every shadow, every encrypted message became a clue, a piece of the puzzle that might finally expose the person who had eluded justice for so long. They began revisiting old witnesses, re-examining testimonies that had been written off as irrelevant, and cross-referencing every minute detail from the original investigations. Slowly, a narrative began to form. A criminal who operated in the background, manipulating circumstances, observing and controlling, always steps ahead, yet leaving traces for the most perceptive to follow. The team felt both the thrill of discovery and the heavy responsibility of knowing that time was critical. They were navigating a labyrinth of secrets, where one wrong assumption could destroy the fragile path to the truth. With each day, the case grew more complex and the stakes higher. But the detectives of Dept were relentless, guided by the certainty that uncovering the past was the only way to prevent another disappearance, another life swallowed by mystery. The investigation took on a new dimension as Elias began digging deeper into the digital footprint of Maja Kristoff and the linked cases. Hidden within old, deleted social media accounts were encrypted messages that seemed nonsensical at first glance, random strings of letters and numbers. But Elias had a talent for uncovering hidden patterns, and soon he realized these were not random. They contained coordinates, times, and cryptic references to projects and assignments, suggesting meetings and activities that had occurred in abandoned buildings and remote locations across the city. Lena and the team followed these leads cautiously, knowing that every move had to be deliberate to avoid alerting anyone who might still be watching. Jonas revisited the forensic evidence from Maja's apartment, cross-referencing it with other cold cases, and discovered a startling consistency. The presence of fibers, chemical traces, and fingerprints that indicated the same person had been involved in multiple disappearances. Freya worked tirelessly to construct a behavioral map of the suspect, analyzing every known action, every pattern of avoidance, and every signature left behind. Slowly, a portrait emerged. A criminal who was intelligent, highly organized, and patient to the point of obsession. Someone who could manipulate environments and people without leaving obvious traces. The team realized they were dealing with a person who had operated undetected for years, creating an intricate web that spanned cities and possibly even countries. They traced abandoned storage units, old buildings, and forgotten properties mentioned in the encrypted messages. Each location revealed small but significant clues. Objects belonging to missing individuals, photographs that appeared to have been taken covertly, and items moved or arranged to communicate some message only the perpetrator understood. Lena felt the tension increase with each discovery. It was as though the criminal had anticipated the investigation, leaving warnings and misdirections for those who might try to follow. Henrik coordinated discreet surveillance of the areas identified by Elias, noticing patterns of activity that suggested the suspect was still monitoring movements, testing boundaries, and gauging reactions. The team understood that solving Maja's case required more than just forensic evidence. It demanded understanding the mind behind the actions. Every file, every clue, every tiny inconsistency in old reports became a vital piece of the larger puzzle. One evening, Lena reviewed a series of photographs taken from an abandoned building. Among seemingly ordinary images were subtle hints of locations, objects, and movements. She realized that the perpetrator had created a coded system, leaving traces that only someone meticulous enough could decipher. It was a challenge, almost a game, where a single oversight could destroy years of investigation. The detectives worked long hours piecing together timelines, cross-referencing evidence, and decoding messages. The complexity of the case grew exponentially, but so did their determination. They understood that Maja's disappearance was part of a carefully orchestrated sequence of crimes, and uncovering it would require patience, intelligence, and courage. Despite the danger, the team pressed on, guided by the certainty that each revelation brought them closer to the truth, and closer to confronting the person who had spent years manipulating lives from the shadows, leaving the city unaware of the full extent of the crimes that had quietly unfolded beneath its surface. The breakthrough came unexpectedly, as breakthroughs often do, in the form of a single fingerprint that Jonas had cross-checked repeatedly against the national database. At first, it appeared to belong to someone long presumed dead, a person who had disappeared years before under mysterious circumstances. Further investigation revealed that this individual had faked his death, carefully erasing his existence from public records and manipulating any documentation that could tie him to past crimes. Lena felt a chill as she reviewed the evidence. The patterns, the meticulous planning, the cryptic messages, all pointed to someone who had lived in plain sight while orchestrating a web of disappearances with precision. Freya reconstructed the suspect's behavioral tendencies, analyzing past actions to predict future ones. She noticed patterns in the choice of locations, timing, and methods, all of which suggested an obsessive need for control rather than mere criminal intent. This insight allowed the team to anticipate the suspect's moves, predicting where he might strike next or where crucial evidence could be hidden. Lena and Henrik coordinated discreet surveillance operations, monitoring locations identified through decrypted messages and patterns revealed in the forensic evidence. They noticed subtle indicators of surveillance, objects slightly out of place, signs of recent activity in supposedly abandoned buildings, and traces of digital monitoring. Every day brought them closer, but also heightened the stakes. The suspect was clever, cautious, and capable of adapting rapidly. As the detectives pieced together the timeline of Maja's disappearance, a horrifying clarity emerged. Maja had inadvertently stumbled upon a secret the suspect wanted to keep hidden. Her disappearance was not random. It was the result of careful observation, planning, and execution. Elias uncovered digital footprints indicating that the suspect had monitored Maja's communications, learning her habits, movements, and vulnerabilities over weeks, if not months. The team realized that catching him required more than evidence. It required a strategy that anticipated his every move. The detectives devised a plan to confront the suspect without triggering his suspicions. They coordinated with city authorities to secure key locations, ensuring that backup was available if the situation escalated. Freya's behavioral predictions guided the operation, suggesting likely routes and hiding places, while Jonas prepared to collect and preserve evidence that could withstand scrutiny in court. Lena felt the pressure mounting. One misstep could not only jeopardize the case, but put Maja, who might still be alive, at risk. Every detail had to be precise: timing, positioning, and observation. When the moment arrived, the team executed their plan with calculated precision. Surveillance cameras, strategic positioning, and careful monitoring allowed them to catch the suspect in the act without endangering others. The operation revealed a network of hidden locations, carefully maintained to conceal victims and evidence. Items recovered included personal belongings of missing individuals, photographs documenting movements, and records showing a disturbing level of control and manipulation. The magnitude of the crimes shocked the team, but the meticulous planning and coordination they had employed ensured that justice could be pursued. For Lena and her colleagues, this was more than a victory over a single case. It was a demonstration of how intelligence, persistence, and collaboration could unravel even the most intricate schemes. The final chapter of the investigation unfolded with a tense precision that left no room for error. The team had tracked the suspect to a remote location, a hidden property carefully maintained to remain undetected. As Lena and her colleagues approached, every detail mattered. The placement of vehicles, the absence of usual sounds, the subtle signs of life that might indicate Maja or others were nearby. The operation was delicate. One wrong move could alert the suspect or endanger lives. Jonas prepared to document and collect evidence, ensuring that anything found would be admissible in court, while Freya monitored patterns of movement and predicted the suspect's likely responses. Elias kept digital lines open, intercepting communications and ensuring no external intervention could compromise the operation. The atmosphere was taut with anticipation. As they entered the property, they discovered that the suspect had indeed created a labyrinthine network of hidden rooms and storage spaces, each one containing objects belonging to missing individuals. Personal belongings, photographs, and carefully cataloged items spoke to a methodical obsession, a desire not just to control, but to preserve the illusion of power. In one hidden room, Maja was found alive. Her survival was a testament to the suspect's peculiar blend of control and calculation. He had kept her alive but isolated, a living secret within his intricate network. Lena and her team acted swiftly to ensure her safety, guiding her out while securing the evidence that would dismantle the entire operation. The scale of the crimes became evident as the team uncovered connections to multiple cases, each carefully orchestrated to appear accidental or unsolvable. The suspect had exploited gaps in law enforcement, weaknesses in record-keeping, and the limitations of surveillance, leaving a trail only the most meticulous investigators could follow. Once the immediate danger was contained, the detectives documented every discovery, creating a comprehensive map of the network and its operations. The evidence was irrefutable. Photographs, digital communications, forensic traces, and first-hand testimony all converged to establish the suspect's culpability. Lena reflected on the complexity of the case and the relentless patience it required. Each member of the team had contributed their expertise, weaving together disparate clues into a coherent narrative that exposed the full scope of the crimes. In the aftermath, law enforcement was able to apprehend the suspect and begin the process of dismantling the network, bringing closure to families who had long suffered in uncertainty. Maja's recovery marked not just the resolution of one disappearance, but the restoration of hope to those affected by years of unanswered questions. The case cemented Dept. Q's reputation as a unit capable of unraveling the most intricate and coldly calculated crimes. It demonstrated the necessity of persistence, collaboration, and an unwavering commitment to truth. For Lena and her colleagues, the experience reinforced a crucial lesson: that justice often requires looking beyond the obvious, following every thread, and trusting instincts when others have given up. The city, once oblivious to the hidden manipulations occurring in its shadows, now bore witness to the consequences of unseen actions. The team's work ensured that secrets that had been carefully buried could no longer remain hidden, and that lives lost or endangered would finally be acknowledged and protected. As the detectives closed the case, the sense of accomplishment was profound, but tempered by the knowledge that many mysteries remained. Dept Q had proven its value, but the city's shadows still held countless stories waiting for someone with the patience, intelligence, and courage to uncover them.